15 years. That's how long I've been taking care of Frank Mitchell like he was my own father. 15 years of Sunday dinners, hospital visits, and fixing everything that broke in his old Victorian house. 15 years of him telling me, Michael, you're the son I never had. I'm sitting in Frank's living room right now, watching him struggle with the TV remote. His hands shake more each month, and sometimes he forgets which button changes the channel. But his eyes still light up when I walk through that door. There you are, son, Frank says, looking up from his worn leather recliner. The afternoon light streams through the lace curtains, casting gentle shadows across his weathered face. I was just thinking about the lake house. The lake house, that beautiful cabin on Lake Tahoe where Sarah and I spent our honeymoon, where we've celebrated every 4th of July for 15 years, where Frank taught my kids how to fish from that old wooden dock. What about it, Dad? I ask, settling into the chair across from him. Frank's face brightens with that smile I've come to love. When I'm gone, that place is yours. You and Sarah and the kids. You've earned it, son. More than earned it. My chest tightens with emotion. It's not about the money, though that cabin's worth well over $1 million now. It's about what it represents. Frank trusts me. He sees me as real family. Dad, you're not going anywhere for a long time, I say, but we both know that's not necessarily true. At 78, with early-stage dementia creeping in, every conversation feels precious. Maybe not, he says, his voice getting that faraway tone. But I want you to know, I've already told my lawyer, Bill Henderson. Everything's in writing. That house is going to you and Sarah because you've been there for me, when nobody else was. I think about my mother-in-law, Barbara, Frank's wife of 35 years. She's always been complicated. Polite enough to my face, but there's always been this underlying tension. But lately she's been different. More attentive to Frank. More present. Speaking of Barbara, I say carefully, she's been coming by a lot more often these days. Frank nods slowly. She has. Almost every day this week. Says she wants to spend more time together while she still can. He pauses, looking out the window. Sometimes I think she feels guilty about all those years she was busy with her social clubs and charity events. That's good, I say, and I mean it. Family time is important. You know what's funny, Michael? Frank leans forward. In all these years, you never once asked me for anything. Not money, not help with your business, nothing. You just showed up. I feel a lump forming in my throat. That's what family does, Dad. No, son, that's what good people do. There's a difference. He reaches over and pats my hand with his trembling fingers. Barbara's boy, David. He's always got his hand out, always needs something. Car payment, credit card debt, business loans that never get paid back. But you give, you don't take. David, Barbara's 48-year-old son from her first marriage. Sarah's half-brother, a guy who's never quite figured out how to stand on his own 2 feet. That's why I trust you with the lake house, Michael, Frank continues. I know you'll take care of it. Make memories there with your kids like we made with Sarah when she was little. The front door opens, and I hear the familiar click of high heels on hardwood floors. Barbara's voice carries from the entryway. Frank, I'm here for our chat. Her voice has that sing-song quality she uses when trying to sound cheerful. But there's something underneath it. Something I can't quite identify. In here, dear, Frank calls out. Barbara appears in the doorway, perfectly put together as always. Navy blue dress, pearl necklace, not a hair out of place despite the October wind outside. She glances at me sitting across from Frank, and for just a split second, I see something flicker across her face. Oh, Michael, I didn't realize you were here. She sets her purse down with deliberate precision. I was hoping to have some alone time with my husband. Of course, I say, starting to stand. No need to rush off, Frank says. But Barbara's already moved to stand behind his chair, her manicured hands resting on his shoulders in a way that's both affectionate and possessive. Actually, Frank, we do need to discuss some important matters privately, she says, her fingers gently massaging his shoulders. Family business. Family business. The phrase hangs in the air like a small challenge. I've been part of this family for 15 years, but suddenly I'm being reminded that I'm not blood. Sure thing, I say, grabbing my jacket. Dad, I'll stop by tomorrow to check on that leaky faucet in the guest bathroom. You're a good boy, Michael, Frank says, and the warmth in his voice reassures me. As I head toward the front door, I hear Barbara's voice drop to a softer, more intimate tone. Frank, honey, we need to talk about the future, about making sure everyone in the family is taken care of properly. I pause at the door, something cold settling in my stomach. The way she said everyone in the family, it didn't include me. After 15 years of treating this man like my own father, I'm suddenly not part of everyone. I walk out to my truck, the October air crisp against my face. As I drive away, I catch a glimpse of Barbara through the front window. She's leaning over Frank's chair, talking animatedly about something. Her body language is different than usual, More urgent, more purposeful. I shake off the uneasy feeling. Frank loves me like a son. He's promised me the lake house. Barbara might have her moods, but she can't change 15 years of relationship between Frank and me. Can she? 20 minutes later, I pull into my own driveway. Sarah's car is already there. She's in the kitchen, putting away groceries. How's Dad? She asks, looking up with that smile that still makes my heart skip after 18 years of marriage. Good. Tired but good. I kiss her cheek. Your mom was there when I left. Wanted some alone time with him. That's sweet, Sarah says. She's been worried about him lately. I think she's finally realizing how precious their time together is. Sweet. Yes, that's probably all it is. A wife wanting to spend quality time with her aging husband. But as I help Sarah put away groceries, I can't shake the image of Barbara standing behind Frank's chair, her hands on his shoulders, her voice dropping to discuss family business. Family business that apparently doesn't include the son-in-law who's been showing up for 15 years. After all, what could she possibly do? 3 days later, I'm heading to Frank's house earlier than usual. Sarah asked me to pick up some photo albums, and I thought I'd bring him his favorite coffee. It's Tuesday morning, 10:30. Barbara usually visits in the afternoons, so I expect to find Frank alone. I use my key to let myself in. Dad? It's Michael, I call out. I brought you that Colombian blend you like. I hear voices from the living room. Frank's voice, and another voice I don't recognize. A man's voice, professional sounding. I pause in the hallway. Something about the tone makes me uneasy. There's an urgency there that doesn't match Frank's usual casual conversations. I move closer, staying just out of sight. Now, Mr. Mitchell, if you could just initial here. The unfamiliar voice is saying. This ensures your assets are distributed according to your current wishes, not some outdated document. My blood runs cold. Assets? Outdated document? I peer around the corner. A man in an expensive gray suit sits across from Frank, leather briefcase open, papers spread across the coffee table. Frank holds a pen, looking confused and uncertain. Standing behind Frank's chair, hands on his shoulders in that same possessive way, is Barbara. I don't understand, Frank says, voice shaky. I thought everything was taken care of. Bill Henderson has been my lawyer for 20 years. Dad, I know this seems overwhelming, Barbara says with fake sympathy. But Mr. Wilson here specializes in elder law. He can protect you better than Bill ever could. Wilson, not Bill Henderson, a stranger. The thing is, Frank, Wilson continues, your previous will has problematic language. It leaves your Lake Tahoe property to your son-in-law. But what if that relationship changes? What if Michael and Sarah divorce? What if Michael decides the property is too much trouble? Frank looks worried. Michael would never, he loves that place almost as much as I do. Barbara's grip tightens slightly. Of course he does now, honey. But people change. David is blood family. He'll always be your son, no matter what. David. Of course this is about David. But Michael has been so good to me, Frank protests weakly. And he still will be, Barbara says smoothly. But David is struggling financially. He needs the stability that property could provide. Michael has his business, his investments. He doesn't need it like David does. I feel punched in the gut. This is Barbara orchestrating a way to give David my $1 million inheritance. Wilson slides another document forward. This new will ensures David receives the Lake Tahoe property, while Michael gets a meaningful bequest, perhaps some furniture or a cash gift to show appreciation for his years of service. Service, like I'm an employee getting a retirement watch. This doesn't feel right, Frank says, setting the pen down. I promised Michael that house. Barbara's voice sharpens slightly. Dad, you're not thinking clearly. Your memory isn't what it used to be. Sometimes you get confused about promises you think you made. The manipulation is so smooth, so calculated. She's positioning herself as the concerned wife, helping her confused husband make better decisions. Memory issues can make previous commitments seem more definitive than they were, Wilson adds. That's why it's important to document everything properly, with witnesses, while you're still able to make these decisions. Frank picks up the pen again, hand trembling. I can see he's been worn down by their tag team approach. This is it. Either I walk away and pretend I never saw this, or I do something to stop it. I step into the room. What's going on here? All three turn toward me. Frank's face lights up with relief. Barbara's expression flickers between surprise and annoyance. Wilson just looks irritated. Michael, Barbara says, recovering quickly. We didn't hear you come in. I knocked, I lie smoothly. Dad, are you okay? You look upset. I'm fine, son, Frank says, but his voice lacks conviction. Barbara and Mr. Wilson were just helping me update some paperwork. What kind of paperwork? I ask, moving closer. I can see the header. Last Will and Testament of Franklin James Mitchell. Wilson closes the folder protectively. These are confidential legal matters between Mr. Mitchell and his wife. His wife and his son-in-law, who's been taking care of him for 15 years, I say, not backing down. Dad, what exactly are they asking you to sign? Frank looks overwhelmed. They say the old will isn't good enough anymore, that I need to be more careful about who gets what. The old will that leaves the lake house to Sarah and me? Silence fills the room. Barbara clears her throat. Michael, family dynamics are complicated. We need to think about what's best for everyone, not just what might have been mentioned during casual conversations. Casual conversations. 15 years of promises reduced to casual conversations. Dad, I say, ignoring Barbara. Do you remember what you told me 3 days ago? About the lake house? Frank's eyes focus on mine, confusion clearing momentarily. I remember, son. I told you it was yours. You and Sarah and the kids. That's right, I say. And do you want to change that? Frank looks around the room, his gaze stopping on Barbara's face. She's giving him a look that's both pleading and threatening. I don't know what I want anymore. Everyone keeps telling me different things. Wilson stands up, annoyed. Mr. Harrison, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. This is a private family matter, and you're making Mr. Mitchell uncomfortable. Actually, I think my presence is making you uncomfortable, I say. Dad, would you like me to stay while you think about this? Yes, Frank says immediately. Yes, I would. Barbara's mask slips slightly. Frank, honey, we were almost finished. Maybe Michael could come back later. No, Frank says, strength returning to his voice. If these decisions are so important, Michael should be part of the discussion. He's family too. Wilson starts gathering papers. Perhaps we should reschedule for when Mr. Mitchell can focus without distractions. That sounds perfect, I say. Dad, why don't we have lunch? You can think about what you really want. No pressure, no rush. As Wilson packs up, Barbara shoots me a look that could melt steel. But she keeps her voice sweet. Of course, Frank. Take all the time you need. Family decisions shouldn't be rushed. But I can hear the edge underneath her words. This isn't over. This is just the beginning. That confrontation in Frank's living room changes everything. Over the next week, I realize Barbara isn't backing down. She's escalating. I start paying closer attention to her patterns. She's visiting Frank every single day now, always when she thinks I won't be there. But I'm a retired construction worker with time on my hands, and I know how to be patient. On Thursday morning, I park down the street from Frank's house and wait. Sure enough, at 9:15, Barbara's silver Mercedes pulls into the driveway. She stays for 2 hours. When she leaves, I give it 10 minutes, then go check on Frank. I find him sitting in his chair, staring out the window with a confused, troubled expression. Hey, Dad, how are you feeling today? I ask, settling into my usual spot across from him. Frank looks at me like he's trying to solve a puzzle. Michael, can I ask you something? Of course, anything. Barbara says you've been talking to Sarah about putting me in one of those nursing homes. Is that true? The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Dad, no, absolutely not. Sarah and I have never discussed anything like that. Frank's shoulders relax slightly, but the worry doesn't leave his eyes. She said you told Sarah that taking care of me was becoming too much work, that you wanted. Dad, look at me. In 15 years, have I ever once complained about helping you? Have I ever acted like you were a burden? No, Frank says quietly. You've always been good to me, son. Then why would I suddenly change now? Think about it, Dad. Who benefits if you stop trusting me? Frank's eyes sharpen for a moment, and I see a flash of the sharp businessman he used to be. But then the confusion returns. I don't know what to think anymore. Everyone's telling me different things. This is exactly what Barbara wants. Confusion, doubt, isolation. Dad, has anyone else been visiting you? Besides Barbara? Frank nods slowly. David came by yesterday. He brought some brochures. What kind of brochures? Places for people like me. Memory care facilities. He said it was just in case for planning purposes. But then he started talking about how expensive they are, how the Lake Tahoe house could cover the costs for years if it was sold. My hands clench into fists. They're not just trying to steal my inheritance, they're using Frank's worst fear, being put in a home, to manipulate him. Dad, listen to me very carefully. Sarah and I will never put you in a facility unless you want to go. We'll take care of you right here in your own home for as long as you want to stay. That's a promise. Tears form in Frank's eyes. That's what I thought. But Barbara says I'm not thinking clearly anymore, that I'm forgetting important conversations we've had. What conversations? She says I asked her to make sure David gets the lake house, that I told her you already have enough, and David needs help more. Frank looks at me desperately. But I don't remember saying that, Michael. I don't remember at all. The manipulation is even more sophisticated than I thought. Barbara isn't just changing Frank's will, she's rewriting his memories, making him doubt his own mind. I spend the next hour with Frank, reminding him of our history together. The times I've fixed his roof, driven him to doctor appointments, brought him soup when he was sick. Slowly the confusion clears from his eyes. But I know it's temporary. Tomorrow Barbara will be back with more lies, More doubt, more pressure. When I get home, Sarah is in the kitchen making dinner. How's Dad today? She asks. I decide it's time to tell her everything. Sarah, we need to talk. Your mother is trying to manipulate your father into changing his will. Sarah stops chopping vegetables and turns to face me. What do you mean? I explain about Wilson, the new will, and today's revelation about the nursing home lies. Sarah's face goes white. She wouldn't do that, Sarah says, but her voice lacks conviction. My mother can be difficult, but she wouldn't lie to Dad about something so serious. Sarah, she told him we want to put him in a nursing home. She told him I said taking care of him was too much work. Look me in the eye and tell me those things are true. Sarah sits down heavily at the kitchen table. They're not true. You love Dad like he was your own father. Exactly. So why would your mother tell him those lies unless she had an agenda? Sarah is quiet for a long moment. What do you think we should do? I think I need to start documenting what's happening. If this goes to court, I need proof of what she's doing. Court? Sarah's voice rises. Michael, you're talking about my mother. I'm talking about protecting your father from being manipulated and lied to. Sarah, if she succeeds, Dad loses his right to choose what happens to his own property, and we lose our future. That night, I can't sleep. I keep thinking about Frank's confused face, the way he questioned his own memories. Barbara is using his illness against him, and it's working. The next morning, I make a decision. I drive to the electronics store and buy a small digital recording device. If Barbara wants to play games, I need to know exactly what she's saying to Frank when I'm not around. I feel guilty about the deception, but Frank can't protect himself anymore. Someone has to document what's really happening. When I get to Frank's house that afternoon, Barbara's car is already there. I can hear voices through the front window. I move closer and catch fragments of their conversation. Michael was asking questions about your finances yesterday. Barbara is saying, he wanted to know how much the house is worth, what other assets you have. It made me uncomfortable, Frank. Michael asked about money? Frank sounds surprised. He did, and when I suggested he wait until after you're gone to worry about those things, he got very defensive, almost angry. I have to bite my tongue to keep from storming inside. I never asked Frank about his finances. Not once in 15 years. Maybe he's just concerned about making sure everything's handled properly, Frank says weakly. Or maybe he's more interested in your money than you realize. Barbara replies, people can fool us, Frank, even people we trust. Through the window, I watch Barbara move behind Frank's chair again, her hands on his shoulders in that possessive grip I've come to hate. I think it would be wise to get your affairs in order soon, she continues, before Michael tries to influence you further. Mr. Wilson could come back next week with the proper paperwork. Frank doesn't respond, but I can see him nodding slowly. Barbara is winning, and I'm running out of time. The recording device changes everything. Over the next 3 days, I captured 12 hours of Barbara's visits with Frank. What I hear makes my blood boil. Wednesday morning recording. Frank, Michael told Sarah that you're getting too difficult to handle. He said your memory problems are becoming embarrassing when you have company. Thursday afternoon. I know this is hard to hear, honey, but Michael asked me how long the doctors think you have left. He said he needs to plan ahead for when the house becomes available. Friday morning. David is so worried about you, Frank. He thinks Michael might be taking advantage of your condition to get you to sign things you don't understand. Every word is a calculated lie designed to isolate Frank from me and make him doubt his own judgment. But now I have proof. I'm sitting in my garage, listening to Friday's recording for the third time, when Sarah walks in. Michael, what are you doing out here? She asks. You missed dinner. I pause the recording and look at my wife. Sarah, I need you to hear something, but I want you to prepare yourself because it's going to be hard to listen to. She sits down on the workbench beside me and I play her Thursday's recording. As Barbara's voice fills the garage with lies about me asking how long Frank has to live, Sarah's face goes white. That's not, you never said that, Sarah whispers. No, I didn't, but it gets worse. I play Wednesday's recording about Frank being embarrassing and difficult. Sarah stands up abruptly, pacing to the other end of the garage. I can't believe this. My own mother is lying to my father about my husband. Sarah, there's more. She's not just lying about me. She's trying to convince him that his memories are wrong, that conversations he clearly remembers never happened. I play Friday's recording where Barbara tells Frank he never promised me the lake house, that it was just confused thinking brought on by his medication. Stop, Sarah says, her voice breaking. I can't listen to any more. Your mother isn't just trying to steal our inheritance, I say gently. She's psychologically abusing your father. She's making him question his own mind. Sarah sits back down, tears in her eyes. What kind of daughter does this make me? I should have seen it. I should have protected him. You couldn't have known. Barbara's been very careful to do this when we're not around, but now we have evidence. What do we do with it? For the first time since this started, I feel a surge of confidence instead of helpless anger. We stop playing defense and start playing offense. The next morning, I call Marcus Weinberg, an elder law attorney I found online. His reviews are excellent, and he specializes in cases involving financial elder abuse. Mr. Harrison, what you're describing sounds like textbook undue influence, Marcus says after I explain the situation. The isolation, the lies designed to create distrust, the pressure to sign legal documents while the victim is confused. These are all red flags. Can we stop her? Possibly. The recordings you have could be very valuable evidence. But I need to ask, did you get Frank's permission to record in his home? My heart sinks. No, I didn't. That complicates things. But it doesn't make the recordings useless. California is a two-party consent state for phone calls. But the rules are different for in-person conversations in someone's home, especially when there's suspected elder abuse involved. Marcus schedules a meeting for the next day. For the first time in weeks, I feel like I'm taking control instead of just reacting to Barbara's moves. That evening, Sarah and I drive to Frank's house together. We find him in his chair, looking tired and confused. Dad, we need to talk, Sarah says, sitting on the arm of his chair. Of course, sweetheart. Is everything all right? I take a deep breath. Frank, I need to ask you something directly. Do you remember our conversation last week about the lake house? When you told me it would be mine and Sarah's someday. Frank's eyes clear slightly. Yes, I remember. I've always intended for you to have it, son. Sarah takes his hand. Dad, has anyone been telling you that Michael said things he didn't say? Or that you made promises you didn't make? Frank looks troubled. Barbara keeps telling me about conversations I can't remember. She says my medication is affecting my memory more than I realize. Dad, I say carefully, what if I told you that I have recordings of some of Barbara's visits? Would you want to hear what she's been saying when you're alone? Frank straightens in his chair, and for a moment he looks like the sharp businessman he used to be. Yes, yes, I would. I play him one of the milder recordings. Barbara telling him that I asked about his finances and seemed more interested in money than his well-being. Frank listens in silence, his face growing harder with each lie. When it ends, he looks at me with clear, angry eyes. I never told her you asked about money, he says firmly. And I know damn well that you've never shown any interest in my finances in 15 years. That's right, Dad. Frank looks at Sarah. Your mother has been lying to me, deliberately lying to make me distrust Michael. Sarah squeezes his hand. I think so, Dad. And we think she's trying to pressure you into changing your will in David's favor. Over my dead body, Frank says, and his voice has a strength I haven't heard in months. This is still my house. This is still my money, and these are still my decisions to make. He looks at me directly. Michael, I want you to call Bill Henderson first thing Monday morning. I want him to prepare a new power of attorney, naming you as my agent, and I want it done before Barbara can interfere again. Are you sure, Dad? Son, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Barbara has crossed a line she can't uncross. If she wants to play games with my mental capacity, she's going to find out just how sharp I still am when it matters. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I feel like we might actually win. Monday morning, I'm sitting in my kitchen drinking coffee when my phone rings. It's Frank, and his voice is shaking. Michael, you need to get over here right now. Barbara found something. My blood turns to ice. What did she find, Dad? She was looking for her reading glasses and moved the picture frame on the TV stand. She saw some kind of small device behind it. The recording device. Damn it, I'll be right there, I say, already grabbing my keys. When I arrive, Barbara's silver Mercedes is in the driveway along with another car I don't recognize. Through the front window, I can see several people in Frank's living room. I use my key to enter, but before I can call out, Barbara's voice cuts through the air like a blade. There he is, the man who's been secretly recording private conversations in my husband's home. In the living room, I find Barbara standing behind Frank's chair with her hands on his shoulders in that possessive grip. But this time, she's not alone. David is there, along with Mr. Wilson and another man in a suit I don't recognize. Frank looks smaller somehow, overwhelmed by the crowd of people surrounding him. Dad, are you okay? I ask. He's fine, Barbara answers before Frank can speak. But we've discovered some very disturbing behavior, Michael. Behavior that shows just how far you're willing to go to manipulate a vulnerable elderly man. The second man in the suit steps forward. Mr. Harrison, I'm Detective Robert Chen with Sacramento PD. Mrs. Mitchell has filed a complaint alleging that you've been illegally recording conversations in this home without consent. My mouth goes dry. I was protecting Frank from being manipulated. That's exactly what someone would say who got caught, David chimes in. Mom, show him what else we found. Barbara reaches into her purse and pulls out a manila folder. We've done some research into your financial situation, Michael. Did you know that your construction company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection just 2 years ago? The room spins slightly. That information isn't public knowledge. How did she get it? That bankruptcy was resolved, I say. My business is fine now. Is it? Wilson opens his own folder. Because according to these credit reports, you're still carrying significant debt. Almost $200,000 in combined business and personal loans. Frank looks up at me with confusion and hurt in his eyes. Michael, why didn't you tell me you were having money troubles? Because I'm not having money troubles, Dad. I restructured some loans, but the business is profitable again. Profitable enough that you don't need Frank's lake house? Barbara's voice is dripping with false sympathy. Or is that million-dollar property looking more attractive now that your finances are stretched thin? Detective Chen is taking notes. Mr. Harrison, the issue isn't your financial situation. It's the unauthorized recording. In California, you need consent from all parties to record private conversations. I was documenting elder abuse, I protest. Barbara has been systematically lying to Frank, trying to isolate him from me so she can manipulate him into changing his will. That's a serious accusation, the detective says. Do you have evidence of this alleged abuse beyond the illegal recordings? Before I can answer, Wilson slides a document across the coffee table toward Frank. Actually, Mr. Mitchell has already taken steps to protect himself. He signed a new will this morning, along with a power of attorney designating his wife as his primary agent. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Frank won't meet my eyes. Michael, I'm confused about so many things, but I'm not confused about the fact that you've been recording me secretly. That feels like a violation of trust. Dad, I was trying to protect you. From what? Barbara's voice rises. From his own family. Michael, you've convinced yourself that everyone is plotting against you, but the only person who's been deceptive here is you. David nods vigorously. Mom called me this morning crying. She said she found that recording device and realized you've probably been listening to everything Dad says, waiting for him to say something you can use against the family. That's not true. Then explain this, Barbara says, pulling out another document. This is a printout from your computer's browser history. Sarah gave us access when she realized how serious this situation had become. My heart stops. Sarah is protecting her father from someone she's realized she can't trust. Barbara continues. These searches show you've been researching how to contest wills, how to prove mental incompetence, and how to gain guardianship over elderly relatives. The room is silent except for the sound of my own heartbeat. Yes, I did those searches. After I discovered Barbara's manipulation, I wanted to understand my legal options. Detective Chen closes his notebook. Mr. Harrison, I'm not arresting you today, but I strongly recommend you contact an attorney. The recording issue aside, Mrs. Mitchell has also filed for a restraining order to protect her husband from further harassment. Harassment? I look at Frank desperately. Dad, please, you know me. 15 years I've been here for you. Why would I suddenly become someone you need protection from? Frank's voice is barely above a whisper. I don't know what to think anymore, son. I thought I knew you, but people keep telling me things, showing me things. Wilson stands up, clearly enjoying his moment of triumph. The restraining order goes into effect immediately. You're not allowed within 500 feet of this residence or Mr. Mitchell until the hearing next week. Frank, I say, ignoring Wilson and speaking directly to the man I've thought of as a father for 15 years. Look at me. Do you really believe I would hurt you? Do you really think I've been pretending to care about you all these years just to get your money? For just a moment, Frank's eyes clear, and I see doubt there. Not doubt about me, but doubt about this whole situation. But then Barbara's hands tighten on his shoulders, and she leans down to whisper something in his ear. Frank looks away. I think you should go, Michael. As I walk toward my truck, I can hear Barbara's voice through the open window. You did the right thing, Frank. I know it was hard, but you protected yourself from someone who was taking advantage of your kindness. Standing in Frank's driveway, legally prohibited from protecting the man who's been like a father to me, I realize Barbara has played this perfectly. She's isolated Frank, turned Sarah against me, and made me look like the manipulator instead of the victim. For the first time since this started, I wonder if I'm actually going to lose everything. 3 days after the restraining order, I'm sitting in Marcus Weinberg's office, feeling like a defeated man. The legal hearing is tomorrow, and everything looks hopeless. I have to be honest with you, Michael, Marcus says, reviewing the documents spread across his desk. Barbara has built a strong case. The illegal recording, your financial troubles, the browser history, it all paints a picture of someone with motive and questionable methods. But what about the manipulation, the lies she told Frank? Without admissible evidence, it's just your word against hers, and right now her word carries more weight. I lean back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. So that's it? She wins? Not necessarily. Marcus picks up a document. There's something that's been bothering me about the timeline. Barbara claims Frank signed the new will and power of attorney Monday morning before you arrived. But there's a problem with that. What kind of problem? I called Bill Henderson, Frank's original lawyer. He says Frank was scheduled for a routine medical evaluation Monday morning with Dr. Patricia Chen. It was part of his ongoing dementia care. My heart skips. What time was the appointment? 8:30 a.m. The same time Barbara claims Frank was lucid enough to sign legal documents giving her complete control over his finances. Marcus slides the medical file across the desk. Dr. Chen's notes are very interesting. She documented that Frank was experiencing significant confusion that morning, disoriented about time and place, unable to recall recent events, showing signs of moderate cognitive impairment. I read the medical notes with growing excitement. This proves Frank wasn't mentally competent to sign anything that morning. It gets better, Marcus continues. California law requires a 48-hour waiting period between the time someone is declared mentally incompetent and when they can sign new legal documents. There are exceptions, but they require 2 independent medical evaluations. Did Barbara get 2 evaluations? No. And here's the smoking gun. Dr. Chen noted that she specifically advised Frank not to make any major legal decisions that day because of his confused state. I feel the first spark of hope I've had in days. Can Dr. Chen testify to this? She's already agreed to, but there's more. Marcus pulls out another file. I had a forensic handwriting expert examine the signatures on the new will. There are some irregularities that suggest the signatures were guided. Guided? Someone helped Frank's hand while he was signing. It's subtle, but there are pressure variations and stroke patterns that indicate external assistance. I think about all those times I saw Barbara with her hands on Frank's shoulders. Barbara was always touching him, positioning herself behind his chair. Exactly. And there's one more thing. I spoke with the notary who witnessed the signing. She's willing to admit that she had concerns about Frank's mental state that morning, but Barbara assured her it was just a temporary medication adjustment. The pieces are falling into place. So Barbara knew Frank was impaired, but she pushed through the signing anyway. That's what it looks like. But Michael, I need to tell you something else. I found out why Barbara was able to get your financial records so easily. How? Marcus hesitates. Sarah gave them to her. Your wife provided Barbara with access to your business accounts, your browser history, everything. The betrayal hits me like a physical blow. Sarah did this knowingly. I don't think so. Barbara told Sarah that you were hiding financial problems that could affect Frank's care. She convinced Sarah that she needed the information to protect her father. And Sarah believed her. Sarah was scared and confused. Barbara played on her fear that you might be taking advantage of her father's condition for financial gain. I run my hands through my hair. My own wife thinks I'm a criminal. Actually, she doesn't. I spoke with Sarah yesterday. She's been having second thoughts about giving Barbara that information, especially after she found out Barbara used it to file the restraining order. Marcus picks up his phone. In fact, Sarah is waiting outside right now. She asked if she could speak with you. A few minutes later, Sarah walks into the office. Her eyes are red from crying and she can barely look at me. Michael, I'm so sorry, she says, sitting down across from me. I thought I was protecting Dad, but I think I helped Mom hurt both of you instead. Sarah, why did you give her access to my files? She said you were hiding debt that could affect Dad's medical care. She said if you were really struggling financially, Dad needed to know so he could plan accordingly. Sarah wipes her eyes. It sounded reasonable at the time. And now? Now I realize Mom has been manipulating all of us. She played on my fear of losing Dad to make me suspicious of you, and she used my love for both of you against me. Sarah reaches across the table and takes my hand. I should have trusted you. 15 years of marriage, and I let my mother convince me you were lying about everything. The important thing is that you're here now, I say, squeezing her hand. Marcus clears his throat. Sarah, I need to ask you something important. Did your mother ever discuss specific plans for your father's assets? Did she mention anything about selling the lake house or using it to benefit David? Sarah nods slowly. She called me 2 weeks ago asking about Dad's relationship with you. She wanted to know if you'd ever talked about expecting an inheritance, if you'd ever seemed entitled to Dad's money. What did you tell her? I told her you never talked about money, that you seemed to genuinely care about Dad without expecting anything in return. Sarah pauses. That's when she started telling me about your financial problems. She said people in debt often hide their true motivations. Marcus makes a note. Sarah, would you be willing to testify about these conversations, about how your mother systematically undermined your trust in Michael? Yes, absolutely. For the first time in days, I feel like we might have a fighting chance. Dr. Chen's medical evaluation, the forensic handwriting analysis, and now Sarah's testimony about Barbara's manipulation. It's not everything, but it's enough to create reasonable doubt. Marcus, what are our chances tomorrow? Better than they were an hour ago. But Michael, you need to understand, even if we prove the new will is invalid, Barbara still has significant influence over Frank. This fight might not end tomorrow. I know, but at least now we're fighting with the truth instead of just defending against lies. Sarah squeezes my hand tighter. We're fighting together, the way we should have been from the beginning. The courtroom is packed. Barbara sits at the plaintiff's table with Wilson, looking confident in her navy suit and pearl necklace. David slouches beside her, constantly checking his phone. Frank sits in the front row, looking frail and confused, a court-appointed advocate beside him. Sarah and I sit with Marcus at the defendant's table. My hands are sweating as Judge Patricia Morrison calls the hearing to order. This is a petition to validate or invalidate a will and power of attorney, executed by Franklin Mitchell. Judge Morrison announces, "Mrs. Mitchell, please present your case." Wilson stands up, smooth and professional. "Your Honor, this is a simple matter. Mr. Mitchell, recognizing his declining cognitive abilities, made the responsible decision to update his legal documents and place his affairs in the hands of his wife of 35 years. He gestures toward me. Unfortunately, Mr. Harrison has challenged these documents because they don't benefit him financially. The evidence will show that Mr. Harrison secretly recorded conversations in Mr. Mitchell's home and has significant undisclosed debts that give him motive to contest a will that favors blood family over in-laws." Judge Morrison nods. "Mr. Weinberg, your response?" Marcus stands. "Your Honor, the evidence will show that Mrs. Mitchell systematically manipulated and lied to her husband over a period of weeks, deliberately isolating him from his son-in-law in order to pressure him into signing documents when he was legally incompetent to do so." Barbara's confident expression flickers slightly. Wilson calls his first witness, the notary who witnessed the signing. She's a nervous woman in her 50s who keeps glancing at Barbara. "Mrs. Patterson, did Mr. Mitchell appear competent when he signed these documents?" Wilson asks. "Well, he seemed a little confused, but Mrs. Mitchell explained that it was just his medication adjustment. She said he always got foggy in the mornings but cleared up by afternoon." Marcus stands for cross-examination. "Mrs. Patterson, did you have concerns about Mr. Mitchell's mental state that morning?" She hesitates. I did wonder if we should wait until he seemed more alert, but Mrs. Mitchell convinced you to proceed anyway. She said it was important to get it done while he was having a good moment." "A good moment? You just testified that he seemed confused." Mrs. Patterson's face reddens. Yes, he did seem confused." Marcus nods. No further questions. Next, Wilson calls David to testify about Michael's character. David straightens his tie and walks to the witness stand like he's enjoying the spotlight. "Mr. Mitchell, how would you describe Mr. Harrison's relationship with your stepfather?" "Well, Michael has always been friendly enough, but lately he seemed more interested in Dad's money than his health. He started asking questions about the value of the lake house, how much Dad had in savings, that kind of thing." I feel Sarah tense beside me. "We both know this is a lie." Marcus stands. "Mr. Mitchell, you testified that Mr. Harrison asked about your stepfather's finances. When exactly did these conversations take place?" David shifts in his seat. "I don't remember exact dates, but it was recent, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago." "Where did these conversations occur?" "At Dad's house during family visits." Marcus picks up a document. "Mr. Mitchell, according to your stepfather's visitor log, which he keeps for his medical team, you visited exactly twice in the past 2 months, once on September 15th for 20 minutes, and once on October 3rd for an hour and 15 minutes. Are you telling this court that Mr. Harrison discussed finances with you during one of those brief visits?" David's face goes pale. Maybe it was during phone calls." "Phone calls? How many phone calls have you had with Mr. Harrison in the past year?" "I don't keep track of every phone call." Marcus looks at Judge Morrison. "Your Honor, I'd like to present phone records showing that Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Harrison have had exactly 0 phone conversations in the past 18 months. David slumps in his chair. "I guess I was mistaken about the details. Or you were lying," Marcus says quietly. When it's our turn, Marcus calls Dr. Patricia Chen to the stand. She's a professional woman in her 40s with calm, authoritative presence. "Dr. Chen, you examined Mr. Mitchell on the morning of October 21st, correct?" "Yes, I did." "What was his mental state that day?" "Mr. Mitchell was experiencing significant cognitive impairment. He was disoriented about time and place, couldn't recall recent events, and showed signs of moderate dementia progression." "Did you advise him about making legal decisions that day?" "Absolutely. I specifically told both Mr. Mitchell and Mrs. Mitchell that he should not sign any important documents or make major decisions until his cognitive function improved." Barbara sits forward sharply and Wilson whispers something in her ear. "Dr. Chen, what time did you give this advice?" "At approximately 9:15 a.m. I documented it in my notes and gave Mrs. Mitchell a copy of my recommendations." Marcus turns to the judge. "Your Honor, Mrs. Mitchell claims her husband signed the new will and power of attorney at 10 a.m. that same morning, less than an hour after Dr. Chen specifically advised against signing any legal documents. Judge Morrison looks directly at Barbara. Mrs. Mitchell, did Dr. Chen advise you that your husband should not sign legal documents that morning? Barbara stands slowly. Your Honor, the doctor said he was having a bad morning, but she didn't specifically say he couldn't sign anything. Dr. Chen, did you or did you not specifically advise against signing legal documents? I did, Your Honor, very specifically. Marcus calls his final witness, Sarah. She walks to the stand with her head held high, but I can see her hands trembling. Mrs. Harrison, did your mother discuss plans regarding your father's will with you? Sarah's voice is steady. Yes, she told me she was concerned about Michael's financial problems and thought Dad should reconsider leaving him the lake house. Did she ask you to provide information about your husband's finances? She did. She said she needed to protect Dad from being taken advantage of. And did you provide that information? Sarah looks directly at Barbara. I did, and I regret it. My mother used information I gave her in confidence to build a case against my husband. She manipulated my love for my father to make me suspicious of the man I've been married to for 18 years. Barbara's mask finally slips completely. She stands up, her voice rising. Sarah, how can you side with him over your own family? Because he is my family, Mom. And because you've been lying to all of us. Judge Morrison bangs her gavel. Mrs. Mitchell, please remain seated. But Barbara can't stop herself. Frank, tell them. Tell them how Michael was always asking about your money, always seeming so interested in what you were worth. Frank looks up from his seat in the front row. For the first time all morning, his eyes are clear and focused. Barbara, he says in a voice that carries across the courtroom, in 15 years, Michael never once asked me about money. Not once. The courtroom falls silent. Frank continues, his voice growing stronger. But you did. Every day for the past 3 weeks you've been in my house, telling me lies about Michael, trying to make me forget all the good he's done for me. Barbara sinks back into her chair as Judge Morrison prepares to render her decision. Judge Morrison sets down her notes and looks across the courtroom with the authority of someone who's seen every kind of family drama imaginable. Based on the evidence presented today, this court finds that Franklin Mitchell was not mentally competent to execute legal documents on October 21st. The will and power of attorney signed that morning are hereby declared null and void. Barbara's face crumbles. David slumps forward, putting his head in his hands. Wilson starts gathering his papers quickly, clearly eager to distance himself from this disaster. Furthermore, Judge Morrison continues, the evidence suggests deliberate manipulation of a vulnerable elderly person. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm ordering a full investigation into potential elder abuse charges. You are prohibited from having unsupervised contact with your husband until he has independent legal representation. Frank's court-appointed advocate leans over to speak with him quietly. Frank nods and stands up slowly. Your Honor, may I say something? Of course, Mr. Mitchell. Frank's voice is clearer than I've heard it in months. I want to make sure everyone understands. I've known Michael Harrison for 15 years. He's been like a son to me. More than like a son, he's been the kind of man I hoped my daughter would marry. And I was right. He turns to look at Barbara. What my wife did, lying to me, trying to make me distrust the best man in our family, that's something I can't forgive. Not now, maybe not ever. Barbara starts to stand, but Wilson puts a hand on her arm to stop her. Frank continues, I want my original will restored, the one that leaves the Lake Tahoe house to Michael and Sarah. And I want Michael appointed as my power of attorney, effective immediately. Judge Morrison nods. Mr. Mitchell, given your medical condition, I'm going to require a comprehensive evaluation before approving any new legal documents. But I see no reason why your wishes shouldn't be honored, assuming you're deemed competent during periods of clarity. As we leave the courthouse, Sarah takes my arm. I'm so sorry, Michael. I should have trusted you from the beginning. You were trying to protect your father. I understand that. No, I was being a coward. I let my mother manipulate me because it was easier than confronting the possibility that she was lying to all of us. Frank walks slowly toward us, leaning heavily on his cane. The court advocate stays close beside him. Dad, how are you feeling? Sarah asks. Tired, Frank admits, but clearer than I've been in weeks. He looks at me. Michael, I owe you an apology. I let myself doubt you, and that was wrong. Dad, you were being manipulated by someone you trusted. That's not your fault. Maybe not, but I should have remembered who you really are. 15 years of evidence, and I let a few weeks of lies override everything. Behind us, Barbara and David are having a heated argument by their car. David's voice carries across the parking lot. Mom, you promised me that house. You said it was practically guaranteed. Keep your voice down, Barbara hisses. This isn't over. We can appeal. We can challenge his competency. No, we can't, Wilson says, approaching their car with his briefcase. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm withdrawing as your attorney. What happened in there was elder abuse, and I won't be part of any further attempts to manipulate your husband. Barbara watches Wilson walk away, and for the first time since I've known her, she looks genuinely defeated. Frank notices the argument and shakes his head sadly. 35 years of marriage, and it comes to this. She was willing to destroy our family for money. What will you do about Barbara? Sarah asks gently. Frank is quiet for a long moment. I don't know yet. I can't live with someone I can't trust. But divorce at my age, with my condition, it's complicated. You don't have to make any decisions right now, Dad. I say, focus on your health first. Everything else can wait. Actually, there is one decision I want to make right now. Frank reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out a set of keys. Michael, these are the keys to the Lake Tahoe house. I want you and Sarah to have them now. Not when I'm gone, but now, while I can see you enjoy the place. I take the keys with shaking hands. Dad, are you sure? Son, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. That house represents the best memories I have with family. Real family. I want it to stay with people who understand what family actually means. Sarah hugs her father tightly. Thank you, Dad, for trusting us, and for being strong enough to see through Mom's lies. Thank Michael, Frank says. If he hadn't been willing to fight for the truth, I'd probably be in some nursing home right now, wondering why everyone I loved had abandoned me. 3 weeks later, Sarah and I are sitting on the deck of the Lake Tahoe house, watching the sun set over the water. The legal paperwork is finalized, and Frank's new power of attorney is in effect. He's living in his own home with a live-in caregiver, and his cognitive function has improved dramatically since the stress of Barbara's manipulation ended. Barbara moved out of Frank's house and is living with David in his apartment. The elder abuse investigation is ongoing, but even if charges aren't filed, her reputation in the community is destroyed. The restraining order against me was dismissed with prejudice. It's beautiful here, Sarah says, reaching for my hand. Your father always said this place holds the best family memories, and now it'll hold ours. Sarah squeezes my hand. Michael, I learned something important through all this. What's that? Family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about showing up day after day, year after year. It's about being there when someone needs you, not just when it's convenient. I think about Frank's words in the courtroom. He's been the kind of man I hoped my daughter would marry. After everything we've been through, I finally understand what he meant. Real family isn't something you're born into. It's something you build one day at a time through trust and loyalty and love that doesn't come with conditions. And sometimes it's something worth fighting for. 2 months after the court hearing, I'm sitting with Frank in his living room on a quiet Sunday afternoon. The same room where this whole nightmare began, but everything feels different now. The tension that used to hang in the air like smoke is gone, replaced by the comfortable silence of two people who've weathered a storm together. Frank is working on a crossword puzzle, something he couldn't do during those weeks when Barbara was manipulating him. His mind is sharper now, more focused. The doctors say removing stress can sometimes slow the progression of dementia, and Frank is living proof of that. Michael, what's a 7-letter word for betrayal? He asks, tapping his pen against the newspaper. Perfidy, I say without thinking. Frank looks up with a slight smile. You always were good with words, son. Barbara used to complain that you made the rest of us look uneducated. It's the first time he's mentioned Barbara's name without pain in his voice. Progress. Dad, can I ask you something I've been wondering about? Of course. Looking back now, when did you first start feeling like something was wrong? Before I discovered what was happening, I mean. Frank sets down his pen and leans back in his chair. You know, I think it was about 3 weeks before you caught her with that lawyer. I woke up one morning feeling confused, more confused than usual, and instead of being patient with me like she normally was, Barbara seemed almost pleased. Pleased. Like my confusion was useful to her somehow. I remember thinking it was strange, but then she'd tell me about conversations I supposedly had, and I'd start doubting my own memory. Frank pauses, staring out the window at the oak tree in his front yard. The worst part wasn't the lies she told about you, Michael. The worst part was how she made me question everything I knew about myself. She convinced me that my own memories were wrong, that I couldn't trust my own mind. I feel a familiar anger rising in my chest. But it's different now. Not the helpless rage I felt during the manipulation, but something colder and more controlled. That's psychological abuse, Dad. What she did to you, it has a name. It's called gaslighting. I looked that up after the hearing, Frank says. 43 years of marriage, and I never knew my wife was capable of something like that. Do you miss her? I miss the woman I thought she was. The woman who existed before I saw who she really was underneath. But the person who stood in this room and systematically lied to me about the man who's been like a son to me for 15 years. No, Michael, I don't miss that person at all. The doorbell rings and I hear Sarah's voice in the entryway. She's been visiting Frank more often since the hearing, trying to rebuild their relationship after the confusion and doubt Barbara created. Hi, Dad. Hi, honey, she says, coming into the living room with grocery bags. I brought lunch and some of those cookies from the bakery on J Street. The ones with the chocolate chips? Frank asks hopefully. The very ones. Sarah kisses his forehead before sitting down on the couch next to me. How are you feeling today, Dad? Good. Clear, Michael and I were just talking about your mother. Sarah's expression tightened slightly. What about her? I was explaining to Michael that I don't really miss the person she turned out to be. But I'm curious about something, sweetheart. Do you miss her? Sarah is quiet for a long moment, and I can see her struggling with the question. It's complicated, Dad. Part of me misses having a mother, but I'm not sure I ever really had one. Not the kind of mother who puts her children's well-being ahead of her own interests. What do you mean? Sarah takes my hand, and I can feel the tension in her fingers. I've been thinking a lot about my childhood, trying to understand how Mom could do what she did to you, and I keep remembering things that didn't seem important at the time, but now, like what? Like how she always seemed more concerned with what the neighbors thought than with how I felt. Or how she'd use my love for you as a way to control my behavior. If you don't do this, it will upset your father. That kind of thing. Frank nods slowly. Your mother was always very concerned with appearances. I thought it was just vanity, but maybe it was something deeper. I think Mom has spent her whole life trying to control situations and people to make herself feel secure, Sarah continues. And when she realized she couldn't control you anymore, Dad, when your illness made you less predictable, she panicked. So she tried to control the situation by controlling me. I add, exactly. And when that didn't work, she tried to eliminate you from the equation entirely. Frank reaches over and pats Sarah's knee. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm sorry you had to choose between your mother and your husband. That's not a choice any child should have to make. I didn't choose between you and her, Dad. I chose between truth and lies, between love and manipulation. Sarah looks at me, and I almost chose wrong. But you didn't, I say firmly. When it mattered most, when Frank needed someone to stand up for the truth, you did. We all did, Frank says, and that's what real family does. We protect each other, even when it's difficult, even when it hurts. Sarah wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. I just wish I could have figured it out sooner, before she hurt you so much, Dad. Sarah, listen to me, Frank says, his voice strong and clear. Your mother fooled me for weeks, and I was living with her every day. She fooled Michael for years, and he's one of the most perceptive men I know. The fact that she fooled you doesn't make you weak or naive. It makes you human. And it makes her dangerous, I add, which is why she can't be part of our lives anymore. Frank nods. Some people you forgive and try to rebuild with, and some people you protect yourself from. Learning the difference, that's wisdom, not cruelty. As the afternoon sunlight streams through the windows, filling the room with warmth, I realize that we've all learned something valuable from this ordeal. Sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to stop trusting someone who's proven they can't be trusted. 6 months after the court hearing, I'm standing on the deck of the Lake Tahoe house, watching my grandson Tommy cast his fishing line into the same waters where Frank taught me to fish 20 years ago. The morning mist rises off the lake like ghosts of old memories, but these aren't the haunting kind. These are the good ones, the ones that make you grateful for the time you've had and hopeful for the time ahead. Grandpa Mike, I think I felt a bite, Tommy calls out excitedly. Keep your line steady, buddy. Let the fish tell you when it's ready. Frank sits in his favorite chair on the deck, wrapped in a warm blanket despite the July sunshine. His good days are more frequent now, and on mornings like this he's sharp as ever. That boy reminds me of you when you first started fishing here, Frank says with a chuckle. All enthusiasm, no patience. I had a good teacher, I reply, settling into the chair beside him. Sarah emerges from the kitchen with a tray of coffee and Frank's morning medications. This has become our routine during the summer months. Extended weekends at the lake house with Frank, making sure he has family around him and creating new memories while we still can. How are you feeling today, Dad? Sarah asks, handing him his coffee. Like the luckiest man alive, Frank says, and he means it. The bitterness that used to cloud his eyes when he talked about Barbara is gone now. I get to watch my grandson learn to fish in the same spot where I taught his grandfather. Not many people get to see that kind of continuity in their families. Tommy suddenly jerks his fishing rod, and we all turn to watch him reel in a decent-sized trout. The boy's face lights up with pure joy, and Frank claps his hands together. That's a beauty, Tommy. Your first Tahoe trout. As Tommy poses for pictures with his catch, Frank turns to me with a more serious expression. Michael, I need to tell you something. I've been talking with my doctors, and they think I have maybe 2 good years left before the dementia gets bad enough that I won't be myself anymore. Sarah starts to protest, but Frank holds up his hand gently. It's okay, sweetheart. I'm not afraid of it, but I want to make sure I say some things while I still can. He looks directly at me. Son, what Barbara tried to do to us, it taught me something important about the difference between the family you're born into and the family you choose. Dad, you don't need to. Michael, you've been more of a son to me than David ever was. Not because David is a bad person necessarily, but because you understood something he never did. You understood that love isn't about what you can get from someone. It's about what you can give. Frank pauses to watch Tommy struggling with his fishing line, tangled now around a piece of driftwood. Here, let me help you with that, buddy, I say, getting up to assist my grandson. As I work to untangle the line, Frank continues talking to Sarah. Your mother spent 35 years with me, but she never understood what Michael figured out in his first year as part of this family. She saw relationships as transactions. What can I get? What do I deserve? What's in it for me? And Michael, Sarah asks. Michael saw relationships as investments. What can I give? How can I help? What does this person need from me? Frank smiles as he watches me patiently work with Tommy's fishing line. That's why his love felt different from the beginning. It wasn't conditional on what I could do for him or give him. It was just love. I get Tommy's line untangled and cast it back into the water for him. As I return to my chair, I catch the end of Frank's thought. The ironic thing is, Barbara was so worried about protecting what was rightfully hers that she lost everything that actually mattered. She destroyed her relationship with her husband, her daughter, and her grandsons because she couldn't let go of the idea that love is something you earn through blood instead of something you build through actions. Do you think she realizes what she lost? Sarah asks. Frank shrugs. I don't know, and honestly, I don't think about it much anymore. I spent too many years trying to understand Barbara's motivations. Now I'd rather focus on the people who actually care about understanding mine. Tommy comes running up to the deck, dripping wet from wading into the shallows. Grandpa Frank, Grandpa Mike says there might be bigger fish in the deep part. Can we take the boat out later? Of course we can, young man. But first, let's get you dried off before you catch cold. As Sarah wraps Tommy in a towel, I notice how naturally she's taken on the role of caring for both her father and her grandson. The woman who used to be torn between loyalties now moves confidently between relationships, secure in her understanding of where she belongs and why. You know what the best part of all this is? Frank says quietly, watching his family bustle around the deck. What's that, Dad? I almost let Barbara convince me that you were the problem, that you were the threat to our family's happiness. Frank shakes his head in amazement. But you weren't the threat, Michael. You were the solution. You were the person who proved that family isn't about blood or obligation or inheritance. He reaches over and puts his hand on my shoulder. Family is about showing up day after day, year after year, not because you have to, but because you want to. It's about choosing to love someone even when it's difficult, even when they can't give you anything in return. Frank looks out over the lake, where the morning mist is finally clearing to reveal the crystal clear water beneath. You know what I'm going to put in my final will, Michael? The real one. The one that can't be challenged or manipulated or changed. What's that, Dad? I'm going to write that this house doesn't just belong to you because of some legal document. It belongs to you because you understand what it represents. This place is about family memories, about passing down values from one generation to the next, about creating a legacy of love instead of just a pile of assets. Tommy comes running back with his fishing rod, ready for another try. Are you ready for that boat ride, Grandpa Frank? I've been ready for 20 years, buddy. I just needed the right crew to take me out there. As we prepare for our morning on the lake, I realize that Frank was right about one thing. This isn't just about inheritance or property or money. This is about understanding that the most valuable thing you can pass down to the next generation isn't what you own, it's who you choose to love, and why you choose to love them. That's the kind of legacy that can never be stolen.